You're listening to the Super Domestique podcast, Canada's premium cycling podcast, brought to you by the Last Drop Cycling Club.
Okay, we're back. I can't believe it. We're back. Week 2. Let's go. We have an amazing guest today. It's my wife, but also the most famous person I know.
Am I the most famous person you know?
I mean, Zach's pretty famous now.
I would say so.
But, and that's because of the podcast, obviously, but you're, I would say, legitimately Canada famous / internationally famous now. Because of what you do. What do you do, Aliza?
I work as an actor. But, yeah, I'm excited to be here. This wasn't what we originally planned for, so it's...
In your life, or just...
Yeah, I mean, this podcast in our living room was not part of my, 5-year plan. But I would say that really we weren't expecting to have you and me together on a podcast. I don't think that was thought out. So
no, I think this is done by popular demand, which apparently people think we're a power couple, which is a very nice compliment. But do you see us as that figure that people label us as sometimes?
I think because I am in the cycling world, but I don't even have a bike is the big question. Is why
you can have a bike. There are options.
I know. Is that the goal of me being here? Is to
That's the goal
me?
of all of this. Like, we've created the club. There's now this podcast. We have a social media following. We're just peer pressuring you into purchasing a bicycle.
That's the goal. That's end game.
That's end game.
Oh my gosh. Okay. Well, we have a couple of questions here by our producer Nate here, who's prepared these so well.
Amazing.
Let's begin. Ooh, okay. Should I go first with the question?
You should go first.
Okay. Is having a mutually supportive relationship where one partner can be away for half the year or where one can dedicate time to train for a massive goal normal? Is it something that any couple can achieve, or is there a secret that you two know that the rest of us don't?
There's nothing normal about any of this.
Yeah,
There's nothing normal.
So full context here. Essentially at the beginning of 2020, you got into cycling due to the big COVID bubble. And at the same time, I got signed onto an amazing show called Sweet Tooth, which meant that I had to be filming in New Zealand for 6 months. So that gave you a lot of time on your bike. And I feel like we got really lucky because, one, I wasn't going to be here for a really long time, but you also had something to throw your time and passion into while I was away. And we kind of ended up having two very strong passions that required us to be supportive of one another. It didn't feel like there was a choice in the matter.
Yeah, I think this is the tough thing. It was hard to initially conceptualize the fact that you were going to work on a TV show halfway across the earth. COVID-19 was fully on, going super strong, especially here. And then it was just starting in New Zealand. So it wasn't just the fact you were leaving. It was you were leaving during a pandemic.
You couldn't come to visit me because New Zealand was on lockdown. The fact that I was even there was a privilege. So we couldn't go back and forth and see each other. We had to settle on the fact that we were going to be apart for 6 months.
Yeah, so I think we went into it knowing that and went into it having to set ourselves up to be somewhat successful, but also supportive in that environment. I mean, people don't talk about this, I think, in, let's say, do we call this a long distance relationship? I don't even think we do when you're married, but I think the big thing that we did is we talked for 4 or 5 hours a week, I would say.
Yeah, every day we at least had a full-on conversation. But I think what made the biggest difference with cycling, which I was so grateful for, is the fact that you had a club that you were part of. I didn't honestly realize the impact that being part of a club had on a person. So I think that's what really made me want to be so supportive of you in cycling, is I saw the positive impact in having a support system like the Last Drop. Mm-hmm. Even though, you guys were getting up at what was it, 4 in the morning to do your crazy nitro rides?
Yeah, no, absolutely. But can you talk about this? Because we talk about it when we go on dog walks all the time. But do you feel like cycling is it was the right sport? It's not a toxic environment generally. It breeds a community. Do you
Ye-
feel that way, or do you feel like it is as toxic as anything we could have chosen?
I mean, I think it's the healthiest sport that you could have picked. I mean, I think the fact that you guys are all out going for rides and healthy, I mean, mentally as well. Because I think you have to be in a very calm mindset. I think a lot of people think cycling is really hardcore and you have to be really intense. But really, all of the cyclists that I meet are super chilled out. Like, you're all very, very calm individuals. And I think it's because when you are cycling, especially when you're road cycling or gravel cycling, you do need to have a certain level of focus, and it's not as much driven by aggression, which I think a lot of other sports are, especially with contact sports. So,
Ball sports. You're talking about ball sports.
ball sports for sure. But yeah, I would say that cycling is not the most economical sport you could
No,
have
no,
picked.
no. Financially, it makes absolutely no sense. If I was a runner, I'd have like 8,000 pairs of shoes by now with the amount we've spent on cycling.
Knowing you, yes. A fun fact about Jam listeners is that when Jam gets into something, he really gets into something. We've. What are some of your hobbies that you've gotten into that you would say you went down the rabbit hole?
Yeah, I mean, I guess that's my personality, but photography was one, right? And if you're into photography, you know that there's gateway drugs to it, right? You buy your first camera, it's probably like a Nikon or a Canon, and then very soon after, apparently, you have a vintage Leica and you're buying a Summilux lens that's like $6,000, and you don't know why you're doing it because you're shooting film. It all starts to go down that rabbit hole, but I enjoy that. I enjoy things that I think I heard it on Houdinki with John Mayer when he talks about his watch collection, right? The normal person will say, "Oh, wow, that's great. That's an amazing piece of engineering, or that's an amazing object." But the real collector, the person like myself or the person out there that I respect will say, "Oh, let's look a little bit deeper. Oh, it's not just a Leica. Oh, it's a Leica double stamped.
Right.
That was done in 1975 only for the Canadian market." And that's what gets me super excited about anything I'm into, is going even deeper.
And is there a limit with cycling? Like, can you just keep going down that rabbit hole of, okay, now there's this thing, now there's this thing? I mean, it started with carbon, and then all of a sudden I just find that it's just kept going.
Yeah, I mean, like, I think that's the thing that's amazing about cycling is it's not completely about the athleticism. It's not completely about the fitness. I think for some people it definitely is, which huge respect to them. That's why they do it. But for me, like a good 30% of the passion behind it is the stuff, right?
Right.
It's the helmets. It's the cool titanium products.
It's the toys.
It's the toys, and then it's all the stories that surround the toys that I truly love. So I think it's the perfect sport for someone like me because I can dive in deep intellectually into these objects and really go into it. But I can also get obviously the huge physical benefits of it, and the competition and the racing and the community and the people. But you also get to dive into the objects, and I think I love that so much.
Yeah. And I wouldn't say that I would do the situation all over again where we're 6 months apart and you're having to dedicate all that time to cycling. I think we found a really good balance now that I'm home and you're going into now the next season, which is going to be hours of cycling early in the morning. Because that's, I think, really hard for couples to manage is cycling is not just an expensive sport, it's a very time-consuming sport. I mean, you guys go out for rides and it can be up to 5 to 6 hours, and it's not necessarily all riding time. There's a huge culture behind it, like coffee hangouts and meet and greets that you guys have, there is a huge socialization component to it that I think partners don't get to be a part of if they're not in the cycling community.
Yeah, I think you maybe struggled with that at the start,
Yeah.
to be honest. But
It's usually just because I want to join you.
you want to join, so
To
you
be
should buy
very
a bike.
honest.
But maybe you can explain that I think it's not only the physical cardiovascular pursuit of getting better at cycling that maybe bugs you about it, but it's also the fact that you have to commit so much to something before you're actually able to just go out there and do it.
Yeah, I mean, there's...
Like the barrier to entry is high.
Yeah, very much so. I mean, the biggest fear that I have, as you know, is cars on the road. I feel like that's the biggest component that I have to get over is, do I share the road? How do I share the road? Cars can be really aggressive. And I think that perspective really changed for me when I saw you get on the road and start cycling while I was in the car, is realizing how vulnerable you are on the road if you don't have the proper infrastructure or the proper bike lanes, right, to stay in. So that's what's super scary for me, and that's what's actually been stopping me more so than the price point. I think for you, you would like me to start at a much higher price point for a bike. And for me, I'd be like, as long as I get a bike, it's fine.
Yeah.
But when you have a cyclist partner, there's an entry level that they expect out of you when you start, I think.
Yeah, and that's sometimes not a good thing. But stay tuned. We'll let you know how Aliza's pursuit to purchase a bike goes. Maybe in year 5, we'll see what happens. But let's see this question. So,
yeah, your question now.
How did you both meet, and what do you both share a passion for outside of obviously the last drop in cycling? What do we share a passion for together? Where did we meet?
Do you want to tell the story? Because I feel like I tell the story all the time.
Aliza tells the story a lot and gets the oohs and ahs from the ladies a lot. So we met 11 years ago at an SFU classroom for a theater class.
It was an art history class.
Art history. Issues in the fine arts.
Yes.
Alternative fine arts.
Contemporary fine arts.
Yeah, so we're talking like Duchamp, and do you remember any other artists that we probably looked at?
I remember a couple, but I have to because that was my whole degree.
Yeah.
Was in theater and fine art. But yeah, it was an art history class. You waltzed down the stairs with your faded jeans and white cotton hoodie, and I was hooked.
And that works.
Listeners,
it works. And that's history, right? Like we met, we got to know each other, we became really, really good friends, and then we went through the process of obviously dating and breaking up and dating and breaking up, and then 10 years later you're sitting here having to support my crazy passions, and I do the same for you.
It sounds so casual when you put it that way, our love story. See, this is why I tell the story.
And that's why Aliza tells the story.
I rember every detail. Yeah. I remember all the gestures that you put out there. So Jam's a bit of a romantic, listeners. Like, don't get it twisted. He's a softie at heart. And I think the last drop, you guys all know it as well. I think a lot of the members of the last drop are actually very, very kind-hearted humans, which is why I think you all get along so well.
Okay, but so feeding off of that, for our listeners, who do you think's the biggest romantic in the last drop? Just from like knowing them and seeing them at events and such.
The biggest romantic.
Yeah. Who comes to mind first?
I mean, Zach is always just
Zach
the love.
Zach doesn't count.
How does he not count? He's like the biggest, I feel like he's like a teddy bear.
I know. See, I'm more thinking like Peter. I wish I was Peter's partner. I feel like he would do cute things with me all the time.
Peter Pressure?
Peter Pressure.
It's just those massages, though.
It's the massages, but he's so kind, right? Like, he's the one who brings, like, treats to events. He, like, will go out of his way to come to an event and give you a massage and bring you food. Like, that has been the culture Peter has perpetuated in the club, and it rubs off on everyone.
So everyone starts bringing in treats and giving each other massages?
Totally. We did a photo shoot recently for the race team, and I thought it was so funny that everybody brought treats, but no one ate it. It was the most, if pardon me saying it, but it was the most like ethnically Asian thing I've seen. Like everyone brought this like buffet of food, and then very few people started to like actually consume said food.
I feel like in Asian culture, you need permission to eat first. I think
And
that
no one was giving permission.
exactly. That was the massive oversight, is that usually you have to have some sort of auntie or uncle just go like, eat, what are you doing? And we did not have that supervisor on
We need
set.
an auntie. Do we have an uncle? Do we have an uncle of TLD?
Oh, do we have an uncle? I'm going to ask you that question, actually, because I think you would have way more insight to that than me.
Oh man, but I'm gonna get in trouble if I call someone like the uncle of the last drop.
But the fun uncle, the guy that everyone loves.
And is this like weird father figure? I think
Yeah.
it's John.
Really?
I think it's John because when he shows up for like a nitro ride on a Saturday, he's there, he's happy to be there, but he's also very much in the vein of, we got to do this. We're going to do this carefully. We're all going to get in our separate pace groups, and we're going to take it very, very responsibly.
Okay, so he's like the chaperone.
I wouldn't say he
kinda.
takes things seriously. He takes things responsibly.
Okay, so yeah, the responsible uncle.
Like he owns the fact that he needs to get back to his family like safely.
Oh, that's nice.
Like I mean, we all do, but
Yes.
he very much
He takes
paramount.
that seriously.
Yeah,
Well, that's a huge thing about the last drop.
Uncle
is
John, Uncle John.
You guys have a lot of parents
We do.
in the club, and I think that's actually what's been really cool for me to see is there is a lot of priority with family time, which is why you go so early in the mornings. Is that something that you're scared about? Because we don't have kids, we have a puppy, but when it comes to having children, I would say that's the biggest thing that takes your time away from the bike. And right now, even the fact that we had Zach here for our first episode was huge because he's in dad mode.
Yeah, okay, so when I think about it, early days in cycling before the club, I worried about it. I said, oh my God, if I have children, they obviously become the priority. My body will change, my mindset will change, everything will change.
Right.
And I'll have to focus on that. After the club, however, not only seeing the amazing people we have who are dads or moms who join the club and do this still very consistently, but the mindset with them is so different, and we talk about this. They're not there to escape.
Yeah.
And I think that's the big difference maybe with our club and other environments is we do it so early because we want to get it done. We're passionate about it, what have you. And then we want to get back to our lives and get back to our families and our work and our careers.
Yeah.
It's not an escape.
Well, that would be the question that I would pose to any couple that's really struggling with managing time and cycling, because that's a huge thing that always comes up is cycling an escape for that partner?
Yeah.
And is that escape just to get time to think? Because sometimes you do need space to have your own thoughts and to process things during the day. So that can actually be very healthy. But how much of that escape is allowing your other partner to have the same space? I think a lot of the time when there's one partner going out for cycling, there's very little room for your significant other to have the same amount of space to do the same thing. So that would be my advice, is that if you are wanting to go out for a 4-hour ride, what is your partner doing in that same time? Are they being given the same space, or are they taking on more responsibility in order for you to have that ride? And how do you balance that out? I mean, we have a rule whenever you go for a ride.
We have rules.
Well, it's an unsaid rule, but it's
Yeah.
the like question of like, you have to tuck me in, which is the like, I need to be fully wrapped up in a blanket. I need to have like my tea, my snacks.
Your choice of beverage.
Whole
your
thing.
Dawson's Creek. That's been happening for the last 3 weeks.
Are
My
you
God.
are you really gonna out me for Dawson's Creek? Right
Why
now?
do you watch Dawson's Creek?
The writing is great. I'm not going to defend myself here. It's a great show. Just watch it. And for me, it feels so nice when I see you take the time to make sure that I'm settled, that I have a lot of self-care
Yeah.
before you go out to do the same thing. And I think that's what love is. That's what a partnership is when it comes to having a cycling partner, is giving each other that time and space, the same amount really, and or trying to. It's not always
Yeah.
going to be the same, but striving for that and making the space for each other, I think goes a very long way.
Can you talk about that more? Because I think one of the healthier things I've seen on social media recently was, I think it was Michelle Obama talks about the fact that it's unfair for couples and partners to put the pressure that everything has to be 50% because it won't be on a daily basis. Sometimes
Yeah.
it's 90%, 10%.
Yeah, and
Sometimes
it
it's
was
40, 60.
Yeah, it was Michelle Obama. And it was, yeah, that things are going to be 70-30. Things might then flip to 40-60. It's never going to be even or equal, but understanding that there will be times where your significant other will need more support. And then who knows, in a month from now, a year from now, that might change. And I think that's what happened with us is you needed to provide a significant amount of support for me during filming season 1 and season 2 of Sweet Tooth. And now that I am home, I'm actually enjoying this aspect of our lives where I'm able to give you a huge amount of support. It's been creatively fulfilling for me as a producer to come here and support Super Domestique and have those creative projects. So I think that's actually something that has worked really well, is that we have turned this into something that we can do together without me having to get on a bike as much as you would like that. I'm still able to have a part in it, which is really, really beautiful. And I think the club has been so inclusive in that as well. It's not like I have, people from the club going, why is she here? She's not even a cyclist. It's
Yeah.
actually, oh, well, why is she interested in us? That's a great thing. But like, are we really that interesting? I mean, it's so funny to get that response instead. But I think that's actually been super welcoming. So it's made me want to be a part of the club more.
That's amazing. That's so good to hear. Perhaps rare right now, but I think as partners realize what you've perhaps realized, that we have more engagement even if you don't ride a bike.
I hope so. I mean, I think that's the goal, is to show that as a partner, you can be included in this space, in this cycling community, without necessarily having the same passion for getting on a bike and going on a ride. Because the community itself is small enough to want to include more and more people. Because the amount of joy that I see in people when they realize that I don't have a bike, but I'm interested in the passion that you have, I think that's what partners are striving for. They
Yeah.
just want to feel like they're
Included?
included, or I think the cyclist, and tell me what you think, is that like, what do you really want out of a partner supporting you? What does that look like? Because I know you have it from me, but what do you think that is for the average cyclist?
Yeah, it's a good question. I mean, I think, first of all, thank you for what you do for me and what you do for the community. But moreover, I think partners have to realize that a lot of these endurance sports are generally quite selfish in nature, right? And I don't mean it in a negative way, selfish. I mean, it's similar to acting, right? You need that support. You need to be emotionally there when you're prepping for a role. You need to be there on set, and you need to be in your bubble and be set up to be successful in those moments, right? And I think it's similar in cycling and similar in many endurance sports, because it's that singular purpose and that singular person who has to do this thing that is quite insane and ridiculous. So I think the biggest thing that positive relationship will have is you're able to go into it with the correct mindset. And I think that is one of the most important things in what we do, because the efforts are so long. It's not like it's an hour. It's 6 hours. That's a lot of time to think. Even though it's intense, even though you're having these big efforts, you have to be in a positive mindset. Otherwise, that descent doesn't go well, or you're cracking under the pressure of doing that particular climb that day. If your head's not right, it's so much self-belief. So if the partner doesn't believe in you and your time and what you're doing, that creeps in. It just does. And I don't know for you, if you're on set and you've had a bad day, that affects the performance. That affects your ability to perform at the level that you need to perform at.
Oh, always. I mean, but I think in my line of work on set, as many storytellers will know, things are bound to go wrong, and so you have to adapt very quickly. I'm sure that happens in cycling as well, where you have to be on your toes. You have to be willing to adapt if the space adapts. But something that I was very curious about is you said these rides are very, very long, which gives you a lot of time to think. Do you ever have massive epiphanies when you're on a ride? And if so, what's your biggest one?
You know what? I don't think I have massive epiphanies. I would say I process thoughts during my rides.
Like why Zach eats an orange in the shower?
Yeah. Yeah, I think about Zach a lot on my rides, but that's for different reasons. But
We tried it, by the way, Zach,
We did.
if you're listening to
We
this,
did.
we tried the orange in the shower, and revolutionary. I would recommend all our listeners to try it because it will change your life.
Yeah, maybe don't send us photos, but
No, please don't
be
send us
creative.
photos.
Yeah, no, I don't have massive epiphanies, to be very, very honest. It's validating things I'm thinking about or working through things. I would say I get a lot of gratitude. I think about, oh my God, the place I get to ride my bike is so beautiful. The people I'm with are amazing. Wow, I'm doing this and I'm getting through that effort. So I think it's more in that vein. I wish I could tell you I had epiphanies on the bike. I feel as though people who don't ride very much have those epiphanies and are like, oh my God, this is amazing. Like,
Right.
I've had this insane thought, and then they go back. But I think the amount we do it, we're in tune with that state of being, whether that's on the trainer or going out for a 4-hour ride. We're used to being in that mindset.
Yeah, like a sense of presence. You have to be fully present in your mind, in your space when you're riding. I'm sure in a way it's similar to meditating.
Yeah, I say it all the time. Like, it's total meditation. And I think that's a huge privilege once you get good and you're comfortable with the sport to a certain extent. But yeah, it's meditation.
So that does make sense when you have individuals that are wanting to go for a 3 to 4 hour ride. I mean, if you could meditate 3 to 4 hours a day, why wouldn't you do it? We have a couple of more rapid fire questions. Would you be interested in
Yes,
that?
let's do it.
Okay. So this one right here.
Yes.
Okay. What is the favorite thing your partner makes for you in the kitchen?
This is a perfect question for Aliza.
It is, because I do not cook.
I wish I got that question, actually.
The list would be way shorter. But yeah, what is that a question for me, or is that a question for you? What is the favorite thing your partner makes? I'll take it.
What about you?
So,
What about you?
my favorite thing that you make in the kitchen. Oh, I mean, your scrambled eggs are just on point.
That's a classic.
It's a classic. You make them French style, so I think that makes them incredible, and it's a simple thing. One of the first things that Jam had to teach me to make when I went to New Zealand, because I would have died if I didn't know what to make, it was eggs. It's the simplest thing that you can make. I would say, like, for you as a cyclist, it's a great source of protein. It's a perfect breakfast to have in the morning. But I love that. That's been my favorite. It's a classic.
It totally is. I'm laughing about eggs now because my trainer, Arad from Vibe Lounge, he told me how many eggs he consumes and has advised that I also consume the same amount of eggs. Apparently it's 8 a day from Arad. We'll validate that during his podcast.
8?
Yeah, so he apparently says, yes, 8 eggs every day in the morning. This is the protein I need to be fit. So I can only make my way to 4 in a sitting. I can't do 8, but I'm not at Arad's level of consuming protein.
Yeah, I'm just in
Obviously.
shock a little bit. I can't even get past 2.
I know. I gotta ask Zach, how many eggs do you have in the morning, Zach? Okay, next question. Here we go. Okay, describe the perfect day together. And perfect is in quotes, so I leave that to you, Aliza.
Oh, so I'm answering the question again.
Oh shit! Yeah, maybe I should answer the question. What is the
Oh, it's
perfect?
both.
It's
Okay.
both.
Yes, our producer has kindly corrected us. Okay, I'll go first. Our perfect day. I always love when we get an early morning walk, when we get the
Yep.
chance on a Saturday. We live very close by to a lot of trails here in Vancouver, and that makes it just the most beautiful space to be in the mornings. I actually really love running errands with you. I think if we have a day of errands, basic errands, whether it's grocery shopping, stopping by Velo.
Yeah, we're not talking about like going to IKEA or Home Depot
No,
because
no, no,
that's
no.
not.
I'm talking about you need to get your wheels changed as we did recently, and that was like a fun errand to go out and say hi to everyone.
This is crazy. Okay, listeners, like you need to understand. My wife is saying this. Like I enjoyed taking my husband to the bike shop and getting new carbon wheels. Yeah, we put some new KDX Ultra 50s on the bike. They are super sexy. But like it just baffles me that you would say that.
But that's what it, because it makes you happy, and then when we're both enjoying a day together, and I get to have my passion that day, or you get to have your passion that day, that's rewarding. And so for me, an amazing day together is when we get to do something like this together, where we're on a podcast. It's something that makes me feel full as a human being, and cycling has now become a part of that. Funnily enough,
Yeah, and I think for me the perfect day is getting to see you do something creative, collaborating together. I think a big thing every day for us as a couple is going on a walk. I mean, we
yeah,
do that every day. If it's 5 minutes, it can be an hour. That's usually the goal a day. Um, and that's super important to us. Like I don't see a good day if we haven't gone for a walk with our dog. And I
yeah.
think that's to me that's a perfect day and it sounds very normal, but I think that's the privilege we also have is we've created a life where the normal things we do generate that, let's say, perfect day.
Yeah. Would you say it's the same for you?
Yeah, I would definitely say so. I think getting to be with your partner and be in a supportive environment, whatever you're doing is that quote unquote perfect. I hate the word perfect because it changes every day, but yeah, I think just being able to support each other, that's perfect for me.
Yeah, I recently started what's called the 5 minute journal. And I know a few people that have been doing it recently, and Arad from Vibe Lounge introduced me to it. And I think the biggest shift in my mind was living in gratitude. So what are you grateful for? What have you learned today? I think that's what created a better mindset for what constitutes as a perfect day.
Do you remember one of the ones you had this week?
Ooh, of
So you,
gratitude.
yeah, so walk us through what do you do with the 5 minute journal?
So 5 minute journal, there's, I would say, 3 prompts in the beginning that says 3 things that you're grateful for, 3 things that would make today great, and a daily affirmation. That's what you start with.
And you do this first thing in the morning. You wake
First thing in the
up, get your
morning,
coffee. That's what you're doing.
exactly. So I love it because it creates a bit of a routine. You get your coffee, you sit, you journal, and then in the evening, before you go to bed, it says 3 highlights of the day and what did you learn. So I would say, yeah, it's 5 minutes. It's super easy, but something that I learned is just how easy things can become when you have a great support system. Like it can be the hardest thing in the world, but it can feel easy when you have the support there. And so that's been a really great way to lean into gratitude, is being grateful for that support system. And when you start cycling through that on a regular basis, it stops being about having the perfect day and more about leaning into the parts of the day that were great.
Yeah.
And I think that's changed my life in terms of living with anxiety, living in a world, in the acting world, where you don't know if you're living your true purpose on a day-to-day basis, right?
Yeah.
You don't know if you're going to get the job. You don't know if you're doing it right, let's say.
And those are things you struggle with, obviously, with acting and given your profession. But I think that's what a lot of people struggle with in different facets, right? For you, perhaps it's career. For others, it's
Cycling.
family. Yeah, it's cycling. I mean, I know that there's a lot of people out there that struggle with not getting better with cycling and how difficult it is. You know, you first start off, you get a lot of gains, and then you're kind of really struggling for that extra bit of fitness or that 10 watts to your FTP or what have you, right? It's so much harder to get better when you, I'd say, reach your, let's say, plateau.
Yeah.
And I'm sure people struggle with it. So 5-minute journal is actually a really good way of reflecting at the start of your day and at the end of the day. And I've seen big changes in your mindset at approaching a day and helping you through when it's tougher. Do you think of your 5-minute journal in the middle of the day? Oh, I thought about this earlier. I should try and employ that.
It's been less so that and more so when something really great happens, it's, oh, I can't wait to write about this in my journal.
Okay, good.
So that's always been a good positive. Do we have time for a couple more questions? Awesome.
We do? Okay.
Let's keep going with these. Has cycling had a positive or negative effect on your sex lives? Oh my God, Nate. Wow.
Here comes the hot takes.
Okay.
Do you want me to go first?
Yes, I was going to let you answer this first.
I think it's had both, to be honest. I think, first of all, I think it's had a negative effect for sure because I just want to go to sleep every night. See, like, you know, you watch these podcasts, you hear these people talk about like athleticism and sleep is the superpower, right?
Yep.
Like if you can manage 9 to 10 hours a day, like that's you getting the one up on everybody, right?
Yeah.
So you buy into that mentality and then, you know, it's 9 o'clock at night and you're like, Aliza, no, don't touch me. I'm going to sleep.
Yes.
I have done my process. You've done your 5-minute journal. You've had your sleepy time tea. Like, we're done here. I need to get my maximum gains.
Yep.
So in that sense, it's been negative.
And positive?
I would say positive because, you know, you have so much self-worth in the way you look. Like, my body has changed over the last 3 years. I feel like I look great. And I say that internally. And that's, you know, that's the confidence you get from being fit. And I understand that now. And that I think cycling has rubbed off on you in the sense that you've done so much working out and you've taken a huge amount of pride also in the way, I would say, not the way you look, but the way you feel.
Yeah, 100%. I had to keep up.
Is that the most appropriate answer for Nate's ridiculous question?
It's
not a ridiculous question.
I don't think it's ridiculous. I actually think it's important to talk about because it is actually a thing. I would agree with that. I would say that you, like, being completely done at the end of the day is a thing. And that has required us to pivot and, for lack of a better way of putting it, plan for times of intimacy. And
it's like we have a child. That's like what a
It
parent would say.
It
I have to
totally
plan
is.
for sex.
Yes.
It's in the calendar.
Yeah, it's in the calendar. We've had to pivot in terms of what feels good. So for you, massages are actually now more enjoyable because you're wanting them, you're craving them. So that's a little bit of a tactic I've used of like, okay, he just needs a little bit of Tarragon action and he's good. So in that sense,
That's my sexual fetish.
Yeah,
now,
it's the Theragun.
Is the Theragun.
yeah,
That's-
100%.
Yeah. Hopefully we get a sponsor from Theragun. Yeah.
Please use as intended, listeners.
As intended.
Yeah,
Yes,
as intended. It's a massage gun, not for anything else.
I mean, no judgment here. We don't judge at the Super Domestique podcast, but no, I think you're right.
Yeah, I would say the positive really has been that because in seeing you get so much joy and validation of your fitness and your wellness that has encouraged me to do the same in my own way. And in turn, we're both feeling very confident in our bodies, in our minds, feeling content in life. And that is allowing a much more beautiful space to be intimate.
Absolutely. And I think the funny thing about cycling that's maybe also rubbed off on you is the lack of drinking, right? Like we
Yeah.
really don't drink. It's like once or twice a month now, maybe. And to be honest, intimacy is better when you're not drinking. It
Yes.
just is.
Yeah.
Do the research. There's academic articles. I don't need to promote this anymore. But yes, that's the healthy lifestyle means better sex life.
But I think
I truly believe that.
as you get older as well, there just needs to be more time for intimacy specifically. I think sex is one thing, but really what made the difference between you going out for cycling for so long is the fact that we were mindful of how to be intimate when we were together.
Yeah.
Whether that's holding each other or like massaging each other, any of those things. I think that makes a huge difference in feeling like your partner is there with you. But yes, Nate, thank you for the so
I
lovely
I
question.
just have this image of like doing a VO2 max effort and then like being done and then you have to like hold me. So that's what I got from that question. So thank you, Nate. But let's do one more.
Okay.
Okay, one of the biggest pet peeves you have about each other. Interesting. We don't talk about this stuff because I'm so ridiculous with the way I think about things. I'm always like
Peeves.
positive.
Yeah, pet peeves. Let's think. Pet peeves. Ooh. I mean, this is kind of a good segue into another topic with cycling, but shaving. I've
Yeah.
noticed that like your beard is just really, really there. But when you get into cycling season, you're all about like, I need to shave, and not just my face, but my legs. Everything needs to be smooth.
Yeah, and that creates havoc in the bathroom. But I think this season,
A little bit.
apparently, you're going to take me to Stripped.
Yeah, we're gonna try and get Jam waxed for his like. Nate's just like saying he's gonna be recording
It's like,
it.
I'll
Yes,
bring all the cameras.
there will be full documentation of the leg wax. But yeah, I think because like there's just so much stubble, and it's that is my pet peeve. But now it's not just the face; it's the leg hair,
Yeah.
and
yeah.
it's our poor razors.
No, it totally is. You know what? Here's a pet peeve that I have because of cycling that you somehow don't find annoying, but like there's sand everywhere.
Yes.
It's because of the gravel bike. It's like there's just sand all over the house, and like you're like, how did this get here? But
I think it's because I can't tell if it's you or the dog. That's now where we're at,
Yeah,
where I don't know,
that's
is
fair.
this like dirt from the dog or is this dirt from his cleats? I can't tell.
yeah, that's fair. I understand that now, and that the basement always smells like degreaser. That's probably also
Yeah.
a pet peeve.
No, now I have that sound in my head.
Oh, the
like,
hub?
Yeah, of like the I
Yeah.
just know what that sound is. And then when you switched your wheels, like I could tell the sound changed.
You know what segment we should do? We should do partners and which hub they prefer.
Ooh.
We should do that. We should have all the hubs lined up. And
Or
then
which
do
is
that.
your partner's bike? Just
Which is
based
your
off of
partner's bike?
100% see if I could guess which one was your bike.
Yeah, no, we should do that. Okay, lock that away. We will do that. That's coming. Which hub is your partner's bike?
Do you think I would win?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
You have a lot of faith in me.
I do. Of course I do. But this was so good today, Aliza, because I think you have such a wonderful understanding and approach of being a partner. And it hasn't always been like this. The first 2 years, I know we sat down and had a lot of tough conversations about cycling and how it was taking over not only our bank account, but it was also taking over our personal time.
Right.
I think I have a question for you. And when did it shift? And when did you say, okay, I need to be there for this person. It's their passion. This is their thing. Because I remember I used to make the argument to you, which was not fair, was you get to do your passion for money and you get to do it for work. I have to work to afford all the stuff to do my passion on the side.
Right.
So I should be justified in my time.
Oh, I remember
Which is
that.
toxic, right? It's a toxic argument.
I wouldn't say it's a toxic argument. It's a valid argument. I think where it became problematic was the question really is how often do you get to live your passion? And I think as performers, as entertainers, we have to figure that out as well. And sometimes we don't get paid for it either.
Yeah.
However, I would say from the beginning, I've always felt very lucky to have a passion in what I do. And wanting you to see that or wanting you to have that passion as well was a huge thing for me. As a partner, you want to see your significant other in their passion, in their element, finding joy in that. So really the shift for me was when you found the last drop. When I realized that...
That's really good advertising.
Yeah, if you want to find that shift. But it really was a sense of community. And for me, that was knowing that you would always have people that would have your back. That you weren't out there alone, that you were there with a group of people that were there to support you in life, in work, on the road, on the trail. You were going to have a team there. And that's something that I think should comfort every person when their partner goes out for a ride.
That's very kind of you to say. So our producer pointed at the last card. He wanted me to read it. So what's the one thing you admire the most about each other? And I think that's a nice way to end.
Thanks, Nate.
I'll go first because, continue the love fest. But it's everything you said, Aliza. It's rare. It's honestly rare. You take it as I'm supporting my partner in their passion. But it's rare. This doesn't happen to everybody. And I can speak from people, not only at the club, but friends, that a lot of partners would see this as ridiculous. It's just a hobby. Go do your 1 hour ride on a Saturday. Go have coffee and come home. Don't be a hero on my time. We're trying to build a family and manage it. So I commend you and the way you think about it and the way you recognize it. And I think that's what you've said is what I admire in the context of cycling. There's so much I admire about you. The kindness, the willingness to always see the best in people, the drive to want things to be better in every situation. So those are the things I admire, obviously, but it's really your mindset. Mm-hmm. It's rare.
Aw, thanks.
No.
And I think something I've told you many times, but something I admire about you is
my 5-minute power. You admire my 5-minute power to weight ratio.
Sure, let's go with that. But also your determination in anything you do. I mean, when we talk about you getting into cycling, it's not just a hobby for you. It's your life. And I'm so grateful and I admire the fact that you are open enough to include me in that part of your life. And not just say, oh, this is my thing. And say that, no, this is our thing. And yeah, I think that very few partners in this sport would also allow their significant other to come into this and be like, okay, I'm going to walk you through all of these different things that you don't know anything about. I'm going to remind you that there's a difference between the wheel and the tire. I'm going to remind you that there is, a difference in the different bike sizes. I'm going to remind you the difference in helmets and have that patience. Because I'm a complete noob. I have no idea what half of these terms are. But the fact that you're so willing to walk me through it every single time just so that we can share it together is something that I really, really admire and I'm really grateful for.
Oh, well, thank you. Well, it's a hot take. So if you have a partner and they're not quite sure about cycling, walk them through it.
Over and over again.
Until, they get it. Or perhaps there's not the alignment you want out there. But we're not here for relationship advice.
Are we not? I feel like that's all this podcast, was today.
But thank you, Aliza. Thanks for being here, and thanks for being on the podcast and supporting all we do in cycling and the whole world around it. So
yeah, thank you for having me. It's been amazing. And thank you for the conversation and the amazing questions. If there is anything you want us to talk about, listeners, feel free to comment and send us a message and let us know, because this is going to be happening for a little while now. And I'm excited for the amazing guests that we have. We have some really cool guests lined up.
We do. Fist bumps all around. Thanks, Aliza.
Thanks. Thanks for checking out the Super Domestique podcast. Follow us on Instagram or find us at thelastdrop.cc to learn more.